Right, so across its relatively short history in the animation scene, Glitch Productions has managed to create some incredibly memorable stories enjoyed by millions across the globe. Nothing is more evident of their impact on this community than the success of the first GlitchX livestream, featuring a showcase of the incredible talents offered by the indie animation space and hosting some of the most highly acclaimed writers, directors, and voice actors on the scene. However, in and amongst all of this, there were 2 minutes of content that stuck out to me particularly, the last 10 seconds of which I will play for you now. The Gaslight District, while not as obvious in its title as something like Murder Drones, has a concept that is relatively easy to grasp. The world is dead. Natural disaster, nuclear fallout, worldwide plague. It's not important how it happened, just that it did. That fact is the premise of this show. Less so the fact itself, and more the response to it. See, despite the fact that little of consequence exists outside the small island we find ourselves in, the residents of this place refuse to accept that fact. Criminals, mobsters, and gangsters, the residents of the Gaslight District are doomed to serve an eternal and infinite purgatory, without even the sweet release of death. Interesting concept, right? It hooked me. So while nobody else is willing to give this show a chance, I'm going to offer my opinion on what we've seen so far and a couple of predictions on where it will go. First off, as it is an animation, let's look at the animation. I don't need to tell you that it's a high quality product because it's Glitch, and if it weren't I'd be very angry right now. I do want to look a little more closely into the style of the show. It's an odd sort of style that's kind of like a mesh of the swashbuckler seaside town and a handmade stage. The background characters particularly remind me a lot of those hand-carved puppets. When it comes to animation as a whole, the style isn't entirely unique. We've seen plenty of productions with elements of this style, but by putting them all together, it makes something that I haven't seen much of, and certainly not in the indie sphere. I'm not perfectly read on that though, so if you guys do know something, tell me. Onto the cast, there are only 3 main characters that we know about so far. The first of which is Melancholy Hill. Despite sounding like a landmark rather than a person, she's the show's protagonist, and I believe is featured here in the trailer. Her design draws lots of inspiration from the Mafia, which is made very obvious by this AK-47 in her hands. I'm not a gun nerd, so don't tell me if it's an AK-47 or whatever, I don't care. Ken the Butcher and Mud are the 2 other supporting characters we've seen. This walking health code violation is the leader of the local gang, the Smiling Dead, and Mud serves as a detective trying to solve crimes despite the entire island being filled with nothing but criminals. Good job, mate. You'll notice I didn't mention any voice actors there, mostly because they haven't announced who's doing the voice acting yet. If I were a betting man, I'd put some money on Michael Kovac getting another role, because he's practically a prerequisite for your show doing well at this point, and he's proved he can handle a darker character like Angel does before. The nature of this show also makes me think we might get something from Ed Bosco. A Striker-esque voice would fit quite nicely into this cast. As for Melancholy Hill, I'm still undecided. I doubt LC or Lizzie will get the call up for this one, just based on how the character looks. It would be very hard for them to pull it off, but potentially one of the actresses from Lackadaisy or Hell of a Boss will get a call. And finally, the showrunner itself. Part-time Seagull, aka Nick Spoko? Yeah, we're gonna go with Spoko. Nick Spoko was an animator for Spindlehorse previously, but unlike the other 2, he lacks a history of story writing, which could go one of 2 ways. Way number 1. Badly. As any writer will tell you, it takes time to learn how characterization, story arcs, proper development, and everything else that makes a good story works. Asking a relatively new writer to do that may result in somewhat of a sloppy product. Option 2. Better than we expect. The biggest problem lots of showrunners have when given an opportunity like this is that they think they can do everything in the same way that they do on their smaller projects, which just doesn't work. Going into this without any of those biases that other creators may have ingrained into their system might make it easier for Nick to work as part of Glitch and make a more cohesive product. So now I guess there's just one more question to answer. When do we get to see it? Well, like the title says, there's absolutely nothing from Glitch about this show, apart from including the teaser in GlitchX, so it will probably be a while. At the very least, we're probably going to have to wait for Murder Drones Episode 8 and Digital Circus Episode 3, and given how long those 2 are taking to come out, I'd say we won't get the pilot of Gaslight District until at least the middle of 2025. But when it does come out, and it is a hit, I can hold my head up and say I talked about it before any of the other big names did. Just like I did on Digital Circus, nobody's taking that pride away from me. But that's all I've got for today. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.